Hey, what's good, fam? It's Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com. Today, I'm talking about Alabama's loaded offense going into the 2021 season. Definitely hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. We appreciate you more than you know. Thank you very much for sticking around with us during our preseason coverage. Now, going into this first game against Miami, the storyline on the offensive side is going to revolve around Alabama quarterback Bryce Young, who takes over for Mac Jones. As you know, Mac Jones was super efficient last season, and as you can see, he's already doing work with the New England Patriots. I think what Bryce Young is going to bring to Alabama's offense is an ability to not only extend plays, but an ability to be a straight playmaker. What Bryce lacks in overall experience, I think he's going to make up for, just considering the fact that he's a gamer. When the lights come on and he has a big play that he needs to make, he's going to line up, go with his offense, and execute. And I think that Alabama's offense is going to evolve over the course of the season as Bryce Young gets more experience and more comfortable with this team around him. Now, look, he doesn't have to do too much considering the arsenal that's around him, and we'll talk more about the overall offense more in depth. But I think with Bryce Young, there's a camp out there that feels that he's not going to be able to live up to this five-star hype or whatever. I don't really look at that. I look at the fact that Bryce Young, he's led this team from the springtime going into preseason training camp, and that has allowed him a lot of time to develop as a quarterback, as a leader. You heard the interview. Very polished and well-spoken young man, high IQ. He's worked with Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien had a lot of positive things to say about this entire quarterback room, not only about Bryce. So this quarterback room doesn't have the experience that they've had in the past, but they do have playmakers. Bryce Young, really an exceptional quarterback that I can't wait to see compete against Miami. I think going up against Miami, there's going to be challenges, but I think Bryce Young is ready for those challenges. Now, behind Bryce Young at quarterback, you have Paul Tyson, a completely different quarterback in the fact that Paul Tyson has the big arm, the big delivery. And look, if Paul Tyson gets opportunities in the first game against Mercer, whomever, I think Paul Tyson is going to be able to lead this offense. And as we've learned over the course of the last few years, as Alabama's offense has continued to evolve, there's nothing wrong with having a backup quarterback that can go out and lead this team. You're always one play away from being the guy, and I think Paul Tyson, we've seen a lot of progression from him throughout the last couple seasons. Getting to this Alabama running back room. Now, the lead veteran, as you know, is Brian Robinson. I've told you this before. He's played in 52 games going into this season. And I think with him coming back to 2021, that's only going to make the entire running back room that much better. And we'll talk about some of these younger guys here in just a second. But I think Brian Robinson, along with Robert Gillespie, the new running backs coach, that's going to add leadership. It's going to really kind of pave the way for what it takes to be a great running back. Last year, Brian Robinson playing behind Najee Harris. Now, he did get opportunities. You look at what he did against Ohio State. In my opinion, I felt he played just as well as Najee Harris. I think that these two running backs last year for Alabama were extremely dominant. And this year with Brian Robinson coming back, I think he could be the bell cow if needed. If Alabama needs to take the air out of the game, if they need to pick up a big third down, Brian Robinson has the capabilities to be that guy. I think he's going to be that impactful. I guess the one thing that I want to see from Brian Robinson, and something that we just haven't seen over the course of the last couple seasons, is how can he catch the football out of the backfield? That's something that we're going to find out very soon. Now, speaking of playmakers to this backfield, you got Trey Sanders, and how great was it to see that he's fully recovered going into this season? You're looking at an all-purpose back, a guy who has a lot of flash, just a playmaker, right? So you have him behind Brian Robinson coming back for what should be a year where he's finally healthy. Behind him, you have guys like Jace McClellan and Roydell Williams. And look, these guys might not even be behind each other in the depth chart. I think they're very interchangeable. Jace McClellan, a bigger back that can certainly – he'd probably be the starting running back anywhere else in college football. I think he's that good. And then you also have Hueytown native Roydell Williams out of the backfield. And don't forget about the five-star Kamar Wheaton. So it's an extremely loaded running back room. A lot of guys that you can choose from. A lot of guys are going to get opportunities. But that running back room, we probably haven't talked enough about going into this coming season. So let's say Alabama gets up on an opponent. They can take the air out. They can go ground heavy if they need to. Alabama's completely loaded with some running backs that are younger. And of course, they got the vet, Brian Robinson. Now, another storyline going into the season is Jalil Billingsley, right? And everything that, has kind of gone around him. Now, we don't know the full story or why he's in the doghouse or whatever, but I think Coach Saban has provided this preseason training camp as a learning experience for Jalil Billingsley. And I still feel very confident that once Billingsley comes back and he's repping with the first team, I feel he's going to play a significant amount of time against Miami. I don't know that, 100%, but I just think he's too good to keep off the field. And when he comes in and when he's locked and loaded, I think Jalil Billingsley is going to be everything that he was last year and more. I've said this from the time that Billingsley got to Alabama, that he can be one of these playmakers in college football that is a straight problem. I think you look at some of the flashes that he showed last year. I mean, the hurdle, the big touchdowns. He's going to be a gigantic weapon. And I think it's just going to be a matter of time until he's locked in, he's focused. But, pulling for Billingsley, I think that the upside on him is very high. And as we've seen throughout the springtime, even during preseason training camp, Bryce Young has found a great cohesiveness, a great connection with Cameron Latou. Cameron Latou, one of my favorite stories at Alabama, because when he arrived at Alabama, he was actually an outside linebacker, and he created value for himself by switching to the offensive side of the ball. He's a player that has really just gone out and went to work, right? This guy hasn't complained, at least not to my knowledge, about playing time. He's created value for himself. That's something that Coach Saban is always talking about, right? Create value for yourself, and that's something that Cameron Latou has certainly done for this Alabama offense. Really like what he brings to the table, can put his hand in the dirt, be a blocking tight end, can be a playmaker. We saw him reel off some touchdowns during preseason training camp as well as during Alabama's spring game. Okay, now let's talk about this Alabama wide receiving unit going into this season. Now, considering that Alabama lost Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle, look, you're just not going to be able to replace guys like that. They're two good generational type players. Even before that, it was Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy, right? So coming back to this season, you have John Mechie, who is a very explosive player. And I've been watching him during this preseason. He looks a lot better than last season. And last season, he was very good, right? Caught for nearly 1,000 yards, was kind of overshadowed by the fact that you had a Heisman Trophy winner in Jalen Waddle. But look at Mechie right here. I think he is very dialed in, very locked in, caught an 80-yard pass for a touchdown during Alabama's last preseason scrimmage. So with him coming back, he's the veteran. He's the alpha in that wide receiving room. And I think he's going to be a guy that is a straight playmaker, very dependable hands. You saw him with the big blow last year on Florida. So this guy's a gamer. So with John Mechie coming back, I would be really excited if I'm an Alabama Crimson Tide football fan, just knowing that John Mechie has this room, can show these guys what it takes to continue to be great. Is he a first-round draft pick? He's going to go out and show everyone this year, but maybe that doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is this first game against Miami and how he can come up with big plays, create mismatches. And when Bryce Young needs someone downfield, John Mechie is available to create open space and be a playmaker that certainly Bryce Young is looking for going into this season. Let's also talk about some other wide receivers in this room. Slade Bolden, another veteran coming back. Besides John Mechie, I think Slade Bolden has probably the most experience out of this team. Now, how is Alabama going to use all these wide receivers? I think that there's so much depth at the receiver room. It's probably the most loaded wide receiver room in the entire nation. So you have Slade Bolden, who you can use at the slot position. He returned kicks and punts. I think he just returned punts actually last year a couple times. But Slade Bolden is a guy who can do it all, right? And I think that Slade Bolden has a lot of experience, and I think that he's going to prove that he can be dependable for Bryce Young if he is needed, if he is called on, depending on the formations and the opportunities that he gets. But let's not forget about Slade Bolden going into this year, because while there's a lot of big-time names, and we'll talk about the transfer Jamison Williams in just a second, Slade Bolden is a guy with a lot of experience coming back. Now, Ohio State transfer Jamison Williams, he's really impressed me. I think, just like Nick Saban said, he has the ability to be a featured guy this year. You could just see how he runs routes, how he gets in and out of breaks, how he catches the football, tucks it, turns it upfield, that he's come from a program where there's other top wide receivers. And everybody knows the talent that Ohio State has every single year at the receiver position. Jameson Williams is just what Alabama's wide receiver room needed going into the 2021 season. I'm completely sold that he's going to be a playmaker, that he's going to be a problem on the outside. I think him, John Mechie, whoever you put in the slot position, Jalil Billingsley steps up. I think that overall, Jameson Williams is going to be a player. Don't forget about Javon Baker, a guy that we're looking forward to see continue to progress. I think that he's a guy that has hands. He's physical. He can be what Alabama needs him to be from the outside if he needs to cut over to the slot. I think he's a very versatile wide receiver going into this season as well. There's a ton of wide receivers at Alabama, really four that are freshmen, that I think could step on the field and contribute right away. Ja'Cory Brooks has looked really good to me during preseason training camp. I think he has good size. I think he's 6'2" or 6'3", comes from a quality program from the state of Florida, and I think he's ready to compete. I like the weight that he's put on during from the spring season to fall training camp. I think he's going to be very dangerous to deal with because of the fact that he's a bigger wide receiver. I think you get him to the edge, and I think he can create a mismatch by turning it upfield, by going up for a football, high pointing it, whatever you want Ja'Cory Brooks to be. So I've been really impressed with the freshmen, really all these freshmen coming in. We'll continue to talk about these freshmen moving on. Agiye Hall, another one of those four freshman wide receivers that showed out during the spring game, right? I mean, the catches that he made, the size that he has, just the overall tools that he has at the wide receiver position. Coach Saban was a genius in terms of landing JoJo Earle, Christian Leary, those speed guys. And then on the outside, you got Ja'Cory Brooks and a guy like Agiye Hall. So how many opportunities is Agiye Hall going to get this season? I have no idea. But I think when he does step on the field and he does have opportunities, I think he is going to be very tough to deal with. Another problem type wide receiver just because of the size, the physicality, the circus catch ability that he has. I think Agiye Hall is one of the more underrated wide receivers from that class of 2021, playing like a five-star. And I think his physical prowess is also something that's going to allow him to get onto the field. As we've seen in the past, this Alabama wide receiver room, they've been very good stock blockers downfield. And I think Agiye Hall, remember that clip from the high school footage where he just kind of buries into the defender? I think that's going to allow him to get on the field. Talk about world-class speed. You got Christian Leary from that inside wide receiver position, number 12. He's a guy who has speed to burn. Him and JoJo Earle, different players in the sense that I think JoJo is more versatile in the fact that he's kind of a side-to-side guy, whereas Christian Leary is a straight-line guy. Now, we're going to see these two players play plenty this season as true freshmen. In my opinion, I just think that there's going to be a lot of wide receivers that are rotating in and out, keeping these upperclassmen fresh, right? Christian Leary, I can't wait to see what he can do when he has the football in space. Maybe some sort of special team opportunities, because Christian, I'm telling you, from what I gather, is extremely fast and bringing that speed to Alabama. Let's keep talking about these freshman wide receivers, right? You got JoJo Earle, caught a touchdown pass during Alabama's 1 or 2 scrimmages. He's a smaller wide receiver in stature, but he makes up for it with speed and a high amount of agility. He can be a very big mismatch across the middle of the field. I think he's going to be a great target for Bryce Young as those two continue to progress throughout their career. Runs great routes, comes from the state of Texas. You know, they ball out at the high school level. Really impressed with what we've seen from JoJo Earle. Let's talk about a wide receiver that has a good amount of experience and maybe one of the sleeper wide receivers for Alabama, and that's Trayshawn Holden. I think him and Bryce Young have a very good connection. I think that Trayshawn Holden, what he showed during the spring game, I was really impressed. I mean, it just really blows my mind, the talent at the wide receiver room, and really every single position at Alabama. Of course, every year they're going to have quality depth, but this receiver room is completely loaded. Dow Jones-Bell, another guy that is going to be a problem, caught a touchdown pass from Paul Tyson during the first Alabama scrimmage. I think it was for like 65 yards or something like that. So many wide receivers to deal with. Miami secondary, they're going to have to be ready, because Alabama can keep guys fresh, can keep rotating in similar type players, and this wide receiver room is completely loaded, as you know. And while the storylines are always going to be about the skill position players or the quarterbacks, everybody knows that it starts with the offensive line. And anchoring this team at the tackle position is going to be Evan Neal, 6'7", 360 pounds. I think he's going to be, if not the first pick taken in the draft for 2022, he'll be the second or the third. You're going to hear about him as we continue to move forward. You heard about him last year, started every single game when he got to Alabama at the guard position, and then he started last year at tackle. Now he's a junior at Alabama. I can't wait to see him go against some of these outside edge rushers or DNs. I mean, this guy has everything that you want as your starting tackle. So Evan Neal coming back, I think he's flat out the best offensive lineman in the entire country. Everybody knows that. This is going to be really interesting. This is another storyline that we really haven't talked about too much, but Javon Cohen at the guard position, only a sophomore at the University of Alabama, getting an opportunity to make a push for that starting job. Can he keep that starting job throughout the season? We'll have to see. But next to him, you got Evan Neal, Javon Cohen. So sophomore getting opportunities, creating value for himself. At the center position, you got Chris Owens. Now, Alabama has a couple centers that they can go with. Now, Chris Owens has the most experience, and I would assume that he gets the nod to be the starter, but they can go with Darian Dalcourt, a player who's looking, for opportunities. They can also go with Emil Ekiyor. So they have really three centers that they could work with, but I think Chris Owens, being the fact that he did play a significant amount of time last year when Landon Dickerson went down, he's going to be the guy at center for Alabama. I thought he did a good job last year, and he's returning for his extra senior season, so he has a wealth of experience coming back for Alabama's offensive line. Now, write this name down, Emil Ekiyor. If you're a seasoned Alabama Crimson Tide football fan, you already know about Emil Ekiyor from the past couple seasons because he brings a lot of experience back. We just had an opportunity to hear from Emil just recently. Very polished young man, speaks like a grown man, has the experience. So with Evan Neal, Chris Owens, Emil Ekiyor, those guys are your vets of the offensive line, the leaders of this offensive line. Here he is to the left, number 55, working with new offensive line coach Doug Marrone, who, by the way, was just the head football coach with the Jacksonville Jaguars, right, last season. So talk about an added addition to that overall offensive line. But I'm a huge fan of Emil Ekiyor, really respect his game and the craft that he provides. At the additional tackle position, it looks like you're going to have J.C. Latham. So where did J.C. Latham come from? Yeah, IMG Academy. Where did Evan Neal come from? IMG Academy. Where did Trey Sanders come from? IMG Academy. So as you know, Alabama continues to have a stronghold, a pipeline, if you will, to the IMG Academy. J.C. Latham getting an opportunity maybe to start for Alabama at the tackle position says a lot about his progression as a true freshman. You kind of look back to when Evan Neal started as a true freshman at the guard position. Now J.C. getting an opportunity to be a starter at tackle. And, of course, we could go really in depth about Alabama's offensive line, the big boys, who I feel will play a huge role in this Alabama offense, helping things get going, especially against Miami in this week 1 opener. Look, there's going to be a lot of kinks to work out. You're going to see a lot of different players get in. I think Alabama's offense overall, they lose some big guns. Mac Jones, Najee Harris, Devontae Smith, some very talented offensive linemen. But I think overall, as you can see from this video package, Alabama's offense locked and loaded once again going into the 2021 season. Hey, fam, this is Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com. Thank you very much for being a subscriber of our channel. Hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe, hit that super thanks, basically like a tip to the staff. We'll catch you with a defensive video breakdown soon right here on BamaInsider.com.